course. So you can, we'll give you the information on who to contact about that throughout the course of the webinar. The cameras and the microphones have been turned off just because of the sheer volume of people that we've got with us today. And if you've got any questions, the chat has been enabled, so please feel free to use that throughout. And I'll keep an eye on that, and we'll have an opportunity at the end for more questions. So I think, have we got many more to join? We'll keep admitting. Okay, well, we'll get on with it then. I just wanted to start by saying thank you to Buckinghamshire and Surrey Trading Standards for hosting this event. They've been absolutely fantastic, and particular thanks to Natalie and Claire that have been really helping us with the whole process. Sorry. We're here because the Surrey Anti-Slavery and Human Trafficking Partnership really want to give you a warm welcome and say thank you to you for joining this event. We are made up of statutory organisations, charities and the faith sector, and we believe that everybody from everywhere have the right to a life of freedom. We come together regularly, but we have no funding. Our main tasks are around raising awareness of modern slavery and human trafficking. We facilitate networking opportunities. We provide training and guidance locally on how people can get involved. And we also have a key focus on prevention as well as supporting victims of modern slavery and human trafficking. We're running this event today because it's Anti-Slavery Day. There are awareness raising events and media and publicity events going on up and down the country today to shine a light on the issues. And this opportunity today really gives us an ideal opportunity to engage with you, to engage with local authorities, companies, charities and individuals to address this problem. And that's why we're coming today. We're coming together today. We've got a really fantastic range of speakers. The Police and Crime Commissioner will be opening our event for us, and we've got a video of her to show you. We have Detective Chief Inspector Kerry Lovelace from Surrey Police that's going to talk to you a bit about what modern slavery is. We also have Shane Tyler coming live from an embassy near you, the Romanian embassy, and he's going to talk to you a bit about his experiences as an employer, and he's absolutely brilliant at speaking, so I hope you really enjoy that. We also have Leo Ormondy from Trading Standards, who's going to be talking to you about the crime behind that bargain. And finally, we'll finish off with Chris Elliott, who's the co-chair of the Anti-Slavery Partnership. And he's going to talk to you a bit about how you can get involved and some things, simple things that you can do to help and support us to reduce anti-slavery, to reduce modern slavery and human trafficking in Surrey and beyond. I'm going to hand you over now to Natalie, who's going to run the Police and Crime Commissioner clip for you.
Everyone, I'm Lisa Townsend, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to this important webinar marking Anti-Slavery Day. And in particular, I want to thank the Anti-Slavery Partnership and the Surrey and Bucks Trading Standards for bringing us all together to raise awareness of this really important topic. As your Commissioner in Surrey, a key area of my plan for policing the county is to protect people from harm. This includes a crucial focus on the hidden crimes that are so less visible to the public. Modern slavery is happening here in Surrey, and it's taking many forms. Victims include men, women and children of all ages and all backgrounds. They could be working in nail salons, forced into sex work, in warehouses or on farms. You may have met them when you got your car washed or when you were using a hotel. Later on in this session, we'll be hearing about some of the impact of this crime in Surrey and what the partnership is doing about it, as well as some of the challenges to ensuring that we can support more victims. As both residents and as business owners, you are valuably placed in our community to help us to respond when something doesn't feel right where you live or work. For example, a victim of modern slavery might look malnourished or unkempt. They may appear to work at odd or extensive hours, or have an untreated injury that they're reluctant to seek help for. Do they defer to someone else when carrying out basic tasks that we would take for granted, such as travel, paying for food, or having access to their own keys or even their passport? Due to the exploitative nature of modern slavery, individuals affected often don't see themselves as victims at all, or creating a unique challenge for police and partners to bring those responsible to justice. Along with other victims of crime, work is also needed to keep the victims of modern slavery engaged throughout the criminal justice process. In 2020, more than 10,000 potential victims of modern slavery were reported to the National Referral Mechanism, with 8,730 modern slavery offences recorded by the police. Yet only 259 charges were brought by the CPS under the Modern Slavery Act. And that's one of the reasons why my office is one of the first to fund a dedicated navigator who works with Surrey Police to provide training, help, and improve investigations and directly support survivors to rebuild their lives. This year, record numbers of children and young people are being reported as suspected victims of modern slavery. This is another area in which my office and partners are working hard to enhance the support that's available. We're working with a variety of youth services and schemes to prevent exploitation and provide tailored care to those who are affected. We can and we must do more. By joining this discussion on anti-slavery, you can learn to spot the signs, learn more about the impact on our neighbourhoods, and understand the steps that we can take together to tackle this awful crime in our communities. It is the perfect opportunity for all partners and businesses in the county to vow that the victims of modern slavery will not be forgotten, overlooked, or abandoned.
Thank you very much there to the Police and Crime Commissioner for that opening welcome. We're now going to move on to our first speaker, Detective Chief Inspector Kerry Lovelace from Surrey Police.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this event. I have been the Surrey Police and South East Counties Regional Lead for modern slavery, human trafficking and organised immigration crime for the last 2 years. And it's a role which I'm very, very privileged to be able to undertake, and a subject matter that's really I'm very passionate about and is very close to my heart. So thank you all for joining today on this special day to mark International Anti-Slavery Day. So I'm just going to speak to you for a few minutes about some you not already know. I'm going to take a look first. I'll have the first slide, please. At the bigger picture regarding slavery, which is often something which people don't understand. So you'll no doubt know that it's a worldwide issue, but actually we estimate there's about 40 million slaves currently around the world, and that's 1 in every 1,000 people who's enslaved. A very conservative estimate for the UK, because we don't know what we don't know, is around 130 to 140 modern slaves, which is just over 2 victims for every 1,000 of us in the UK. This is a really high reward, low risk crime type, in that exploiters have to take very few risks to actually generate huge amounts of tax-free money. It's also very rare to happen in isolation. They're nearly always linked to fraud, potentially document offences if you're talking about non-UK nationals, and various other different crime types, sometimes drugs and other criminality. So it very often does not happen in isolation, and it's important that we understand that as the bigger picture. We're in an international crisis, so to speak. We have the impact of exiting the EU, the social hardship by COVID-19, the cost of living crisis and the war in Ukraine. All of these things have come together to increase the pool of people who are vulnerable to exploitation, either in the UK, around the world, or to be brought to the UK for the purposes of exploitation. Next slide. Okay, so outside the metropolitan forces, the southeast is actually the most prevalent area of the country for modern slavery offences. That's largely due to geographical factors. Obviously, you will understand we have a lot of coastline, and it's quite a desirable place for people to be. Generally, there are also links to affluence as well, and we see that particularly in Surrey and the modern slavery crime types that we do experience here. We see all of the types of modern slavery. We see forced labour, domestic servitude, sexual and criminal exploitation, all of them are reported within our region. Nationally, our victims are still most likely to be British adult males, followed by British juvenile males, and they're usually exploited by other British citizens. Victims of high prevalence, they're largely from Romania, Albania, China and Brazil, and that's a fairly consistent theme that we see annually. Next slide, please. Okay, so forced labour and modern slavery occurs within domestic and global supply chains in both developing and developed countries. In the UK, there's a high risk on fixed supply chains because they can't be outsourced overseas. So we see it in things like construction, agriculture, very much at the moment in the care work sector, as well as industries employing agency workers, such as through cleaning and catering. The use of labour intermediaries, so temp agencies, recruitment agencies and labour providers, has blurred the line of responsibility for abusers person in between and made it easier for exploitative practices to occur. The agencies have been present in many cases of forced labour, providing labour and services, and you'll hear more about that a little bit later in the webinar. Globally, work in remote locations such as farms, mining, construction presents associated dangers with the isolation of workers. These locations can make it difficult for governance and inspection to make sure that exploitation isn't taking place, and workers, because it's quite informal, are often reimbursed with commodities such as food and accommodation, and home workers go unmonitored and unregulated. Thank you. Next slide. So how can you help as an employer when you're recruiting or using intermediaries to hire for you? Make sure you train your staff to understand the signs of modern slavery and ensure they know what to do if they see them, which is called the police, the Modern Slavery Helpline or Crime Stoppers. And actively, please demonstrate your support for eradicating modern slavery on your websites and publicity. That's the end of my presentation for today. I'm happy to take questions later. If I can just ask us just to finish before we move on to the next section by just taking a moment just to remember those people who are survivors of modern slavery and those people who are currently enslaved around the world on this day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kerry. We're now about to hand over to Shane Tyler, whose presentation is Slavery and Hidden in Plain Sight. He's the partner and director of Practical Ethics Limited, and he's coming to you from the Romanian Embassy.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I'm just going to see if I can share my screen. So hopefully you can see my screen now. Can you just confirm that you can see the presentation, please?
Yes, I can see that, Shane.
Perfect. Excellent. I'm actually going to, I've deliberately haven't put any of my details on the first slide because I will, I'll introduce myself in a moment, other than to say thanks to the invite today and great to speak to you all. Hopefully what I'm going to share with you is some personal examples of how modern slavery and worker exploitation is taking place in the UK from an employer's perspective, and how I can share with you some of the things I've learned over the last 22 years. A bit of background information, just picking up from what Kerry has just explained to you. Our figures are an estimate of 136,000, which is right in the middle of what Kerry was saying. That's 1 in 480 people. So if you've got a business or supply chain greater than that in the UK, by the law of averages, you're going to have somebody that's exploited within it. In 2015, the Modern Slavery Act came out that requires any business that's greater than £36 million, they have to be doing something about that. That's obviously being pushed down into the supply chains, so there's more and more pressure on organisations to do something. Modern slavery is actually made up of 3 parts: the action, the means and the purpose. The action is the transportation, harbouring or receipt of a person, where you have control and power over them for the means, for the purpose of making money. Well, that's actually not, that's not modern slavery, that's a business. My previous employer was a fruit and veg business. I transported, recruited and harboured that material. I had control and power over it, and I did it for making money. The only difference between me and the exploiters is the commodity and a load of morals. So let's understand what the exploiter's up to. Well, they're running a business, not an opportune crime. This is very often organised and sophisticated, and if you try to stop a business from trading, they're easily able to adapt and change, and it's often forgotten. And because we are looking for signs, which I'm going to come on to, of modern slavery, the reality is what we're looking for, they're already ahead of and trying to hide from us. And as a result, it's truly hidden in plain sight. Likewise, the victim. I'd like to ask the audience to think of the most embarrassing thing you've ever done in your life, the thing that you are so ashamed of you wouldn't share with your nearest and dearest. Now, once you've done that, if anybody wants to ask to be unmiked and tell everybody, then please do. But that's what we're asking the victims of exploitation to do. They are in such a desperate circumstance. It's actually quite arrogant of us to think that they're just going to go tell us. We have to be more preventative. We have to go out there and being more proactive in what we're doing to find them. Again, it's truly hidden in plain sight. When we're looking for the signs of modern slavery, I encourage everyone to look for the absence of normal. The presence of abnormal, the signs of modern slavery are extremely important. But they tend to be, because they're present and they are abnormal, the exploiters can see them too. And as a direct result, they hide them from us. It is their game to make sure that they're staying one step ahead of us. But if you look for the absence of normal, it can't be hidden because it's absent in the first place. But what is an example of absence of normal? I'm willing to bet that every single person on this call has had a conversation already this week to discuss what they have done with work colleagues the previous weekend. Or by the end of this week, they will mention to somebody what they're planning to do this coming weekend. When that's not there, that's the absence of normal. And victims of exploitation just simply don't have that conversation. And I'd strongly encourage any preventative measure that you are doing, you are looking for that type of conversation within your workforce. Truly, by its absence, it's hidden in plain sight. If you are going to look for the presence of abnormal, I encourage you to actually look for things that aren't blatantly obvious to you. These are the toilet facilities on the edge of a field in Spain. I don't know how many times these toilets have been audited and the amount of times that non-compliances have been raised because the sanitary bin in the bottom left was dirty, or what's that bucket doing in there, or why can't the shower be put up on the wall? But what they should have been questioning is, why is that razor blade there? That razor blade tells you that somebody is probably living close by, or as a bare minimum, there's a welfare issue with the workers. It turned out to actually be the first, and that was 5 illegal Syrian men were living in an outbuilding close to these shower facilities. They were working illegally and they had been exploited. They weren't going to come forward and tell us. We needed to find a different way of how we would find the presence of abnormal. I've learned many of these lessons over the past 22 years. For those that have been, and I've spoken with Surrey before, so I apologise for those that may have heard this, but my personal experience started on the 19th of June 2000, when my factory was on panorama for the illegal employment of over 200 staff. Everybody remembers that date because the headlines in the newspapers from the day before, the 18th of June, was where 58 Chinese nationals had died in the back of a lorry coming through the port of Dover. I probably, though, had a different reaction to everybody else. When I saw that headline, my reaction was, well, who cares? That's not going to look great for tonight. I'm still ashamed of that thought, but it was an honest thought. Then the TV programme aired, and my eyes were really open to the horrendous crime that we were facing. Every single one of my workers was being financially exploited. I had workers on as little as 17 pence per hour, and I had absolutely no idea. I had one lady who couldn't afford her rent one week, so the exploiter took it. As a direct result of that, she had a child, and then she couldn't earn. So he put her to work. And the guy that you see in the centre here was asking that lady to earn her money in other ways. And my staff were actually being paid £10 a week, and if they behaved, her. I couldn't believe that was going on in the UK, never mind my business. I learnt a very key lesson that day, and now I'll introduce myself. My name's Shane Tyler. I now run a company called Practical Ethics, but quite frankly, who cares? In the last 22 years, I found that the exploiters don't care unless I'm affecting their business model. And then I wish they didn't. The victims don't care who I am, don't care who we are, unless we're truly doing something to help them. We have to change the way in which we think about modern slavery and make it a far more personal experience. Don't judge yourself on the joy of success, finding cases. That's actually extremely difficult to do. Judge yourself on the fear of failure. Because if you're not doing something, somebody's being exploited. In the 5 years that followed, I found in excess of 180 separate incidents of worker exploitation, what would now be called modern slavery. We had some successes during that time. Found 19 illegal workers in Spalding in Lincolnshire. As a direct result of that, we got a court commendation. Fantastic. But my life changed again in the late spring of 2005. When I had a worker presenting the factory I was then running, who looked like she was wearing makeup. It wasn't until I got close to her that I realised why. I could see that it looked like she was wearing makeup, and she'd been crying. She'd been assaulted the night before and all her wages had been taken from her. She asked for help and I reacted. Unfortunately, I hadn't made the necessary preparations, as I should have done. And unfortunately, the case got mishandled after the event. By the end of the day, I had 7 victims on my hands, awareness of another 53 in a block of flats in Peterborough. I'd got those 7 victims into a hotel in my hometown, and then I received a phone call from a guy called Remigius. In those short few hours, he knew my name, my wife's name, that I had 2 sons where I lived, and asked if I took no further action, he wouldn't. I have to be honest with myself. If he had turned round to me at that point and said, and I'm going to put 50 slaves in your factory tomorrow, there would have been 50 people in that factory the next day. Not everybody that is involved in the crime is complicit with the crime. It's still the most horrendous day of my life, but one of which I learned so many lessons from. My response plan that I've been using ever since and been working with a number of businesses to help engage with the authorities to make sure that that never gets repeated is something that all businesses should have. And I'm more than happy to engage with anybody on this call should you wish to find out what you need to do further. In more recent experiences, 2019, just before lockdown, found 45 slaves in 3 addresses in Birmingham. We didn't find them. Members of the public did. They gave up on one address where 15 people were living in a 2-bed flat. That then led to eventually 45 slaves being taken into the National Referral Mechanism. In 2020, one of the suppliers to the company I was working for was being alleged of some horrendous crimes in the Sunday Times. I'm going to come on and talk about that case very soon. In 2021, I found in excess of 400 Ukrainian workers in the fields in Kent being controlled by an organised crime group just outside of Kyiv in Ukraine. And this year, I've looked at 10 supply chains feeding workers into the UK and found worker exploitation in every one of them. The worst being with Nepal, where I found one worker that was paying £9,100 to exploiters just to get here. He's only got the ability to earn £12,000 in the 6 months that he's here. As he was telling me in a field just south of Boston in Lincolnshire, he's lost his family farm because there is no way he can pay that money back. In other personal experiences, I've had hundreds of cases and thousands of victims, but two really stand out. These are nice positives in the end. I don't know if people can remember the story of the man in the woods near Wisbeach. In 2013, Operation Pheasant found 79 victims of exploitation in leek fields in Cambridgeshire. 3 of those went into the NRM, and the business looked after, the supplier this was, looked after the other 76. Just before it went to court, Ricardos disappeared, and the local police thought he had been murdered. That was in 2015. In 2020, he walked out of the woods near Wisbeach. That was actually quite a joyous day, because clearly he was alive, which was fantastic. But he hadn't been adequately protected and felt that his safety was better to actually run away from the problems he was facing. Bartos we took out of exploitation in 2012. We looked after him for about a year, 18 months, before he then decided that he wanted to go make his life somewhere else in the UK. 5 years after he had been found as a slave in a chicken factory in Liverpool, I got a notification to inform me from an ex-GLAA officer to tell me that he was now being promoted with the company he was with to a manager. So you can make tremendous difference. But the business impact can be massive. I mentioned the story with Kukuzi. That company, as of the 25th of April this year, earnings fell 45%. It's changed that business. Who knows about in March this year that Staines Football Club had to cease trading with immediate effect because the company that owned them had been prosecuted in America for modern slavery and money laundering offences. Or the business impact of the largest modern slavery case to go to court in the United Kingdom, part of Operation Fort, where the lady 2 in on the top row, Juliana, had infiltrated a labour provider. And it's estimated up to 400 people could have been recruited through that agency that were all victims of exploitation and slavery. She was the ideal employee. But after that event, that company has never fully responded. It's not made the money that it's used to make beforehand. But could they have truly spotted it? Very, very difficult place to be. How common is it? Well, according to the overview of police statistics in August, there was 4,548 live investigations into modern slavery in the United Kingdom, most linked to criminal exploitation. But the area I work in, labour exploitation, there's 646 live cases running at the moment. And as Kerry made reference to, British, Romanian, Albanian, Vietnamese, Chinese are the standard nationalities that are being seen. Which we've opened up our borders this summer. We're starting to see a lot more nationalities that are coming through. But all of these slides will be shared with whoever wants them. And hopefully it will help you look for different nationalities and where challenges might be. The best thing I can ask you to go do is engage with your workforce. Don't call them worker interviews when you're sitting down with workers. They're not coming for an interview. Engage with them on a personal level. Try and find out what the issues are that they might be facing. Try and tip the balance so that their fear does not control them and actually hope might. Use the peace model, which I'm sure many of the police officers on this call will be aware of. Prepare any worker welfare chat that you do. Engage with the person that you're speaking to. Gain some level of account. And if it turns illegal at any point where you've got concerns about its legality, that's at the point you escalate and get it to the authorities. Make sure you get closure with any conversation you're having with anybody, and always evaluate, try and improve. Ask questions, TED questions. Tell me, explain to me, describe to me. And I've provided a do's and don'ts to try and make that experience a little bit more successful. But how to find it? You need to identify it through internal checks and reports. They're not perfect, but you need to be checking things. You need to have some level of due diligence. You need to be engaging in the network such as this to gain intelligence from source, find out where your risks are. Your audits need to be process audits, and your risk assessments need to be assessing the risk within your organisation in the processes, not the generic risk. The generic risk is everywhere. Find out where your processes are weak. Those worker welfare chats are absolutely crucial. But when looking for your flags, also look, as I mentioned earlier, for the absence of normal. So it's risks, it's collaborate, it's make the person people-centric. You need to go shine a light in the dark areas. Always follow the money, because that's the one thing the exploiters have in common. Always look for the vulnerable employees. That's the one thing the victims have in common. Be aware of the threat, because if you don't, the people that are willing to talk to you about it are never going to trust you. You need to adapt to change and evolve as much as the exploiters are. When you're looking at the pyramid of I can't remember what this is called now. It's psychological needs, etc.
Hierarchy of needs.
Hierarchy of needs. Thank you very, very much. The hierarchy of needs. If you go into an area where there are blatant safety needs missing, and people are working in that environment and putting up with it, and you wouldn't, question it. But you have to build a culture of trust. Now, the last part I'd just like to work on is, everybody can see this. That's a rhinoceros, but it's a famous rhinoceros. This is a rhinoceros drawn by Drewer, a Portuguese artist in the 16th century. And he drew his picture of a rhinoceros based on everything he had read in a book. And I like to think of this as modern slavery, because we get most of our knowledge based on what we've read in books, what we are reading about what the crime is. The reality is, nothing about that rhinoceros is accurate. But we recognise it's a rhinoceros. If you really want to find a rhinoceros, you need to be looking for that, or that. In fact, every case of modern slavery and worker exploitation has been different. Start looking at them as people. Don't go looking for a victim of something, go looking for a person who might have a welfare issue. If it escalates into a modern slavery issue, then so be it. But we first have to treat them for what they are. It's very difficult to then go find them if you're then looking at a whole herd. And the only way you can find them in there is not by following these typical management approaches. One is the HR approach, where we try and dress up and act like a rhino. They know we're not. So we're always going to struggle because we don't carry the integrity that we need to carry. The operations approach is we scatter it. Now that's great from a disruption perspective, but we're not really solving it. The way in which you need to do it is to train to the lowest levels. If I'm about to commit the crime of drink driving, and I know there's police officers on this call, and I'm not, then who's going to see it? Is it the bar owner that happens to look out of his window as I'm staggering towards my car? Well, yes, but that's luck, not judgment. Is it the barman or barwoman that's been serving me drinks? They know I'm drunk, but they don't have the full picture. They just know I've left the bar. They don't know I haven't caught a cab. What you need to do is train the 100 people that are in the bar and hope that 10 see me in the car park and 2 see me get into the car. And then have the relevant escalation processes within your organisation so they're able to come and tell you they have worker welfare concerns about a fellow colleague. If I can help you any further, there's some details on the screen, but the slides will be shared with you. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Shane. We haven't had any questions so far, so perhaps we may have some at the end, but please stay online. I know you've got to leave at 3 o'clock, but we'll endeavour to be finished, right on time. So next I'm going to hand over to Lee Ormandy, who's the Deputy Team Manager at Trading Standards, and he's going to talk to you about the crime behind the bargains.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. My name's Lee. I'm a Trading Standards Officer with Buckinghamshire and Surrey Trading Standards. First, I just want to thank Shane for that really powerful presentation. There was a lot of really valuable information, a lot of really valuable tips in there. And what I'm going to do briefly this afternoon is I'm just going to pull one thread of that amazing talk that Shane covered. I'm just going to pull one little thread out. So let me just share my presentation, because I think that might be useful. Okay. So I take it everybody can see that. Yeah. Fabulous. Right. So the crime behind the bargain. Now we're quickly approaching Christmas. We're quickly approaching Black Friday. And my laptop has just decided to reset. So.
Everyone just hang on for a minute. We just had a slight technical issue there with the laptop shutting down.
You logged in.
We're just about to
Sorry, could you perhaps go on to quick?
we're just about to reload the presentations.
It's shut for an update.
Unfortunately, the laptop has just shut down, so we're going to move on to our next speaker, which is Chris Elliott, and he is the co-chair of the Surrey Anti-Slavery and Human Trafficking Partnership alongside myself. Are you ready to go, Chris?
Slides can come up, that's even better. Sorry about this, everybody. Okay, I'm hoping you can see. Okay, I'm hoping everybody can see that on their screen. Good afternoon, and thank you, Marie. Thank you, everybody who has spoken so far. You've heard an awful lot about slavery. I'm Chris Elliott. I'm the co-chair, as Marie said, I'm co-chair with her of the Surrey Anti-Slavery and Human Traffic Partnership. What I want to do today is to introduce you to one thing that everybody can do. We have devised to put together a pledge for small businesses of various items that you'll be able to do or you can look at and bring into your own business. It is something that we have trialled with Anglican churches in the eastern end of Surrey and the London Borough of Sutton, where we've had around about a 20% response. 20% response from those churches. Why churches? Because churches, by any definition, are small businesses. We don't have any money, and we will always look for the cheapest deal possible. And I regret to say that we don't always ask the question why. So we're asking you to sign up to this pledge. It'll be sent out in the next few days. And look, if you're not a small business, there will be things you can agree to. There are things that you can share amongst colleagues, even just friends. The pledge has 8 items, and we ask you, please, to commit to at least 3. Tick the boxes and send it back to us. I'm just going to do a quick run through of some of the items that are there. So we ask you, please provide regular updated training for your staff so as they can recognise the potential signs of slavery, and we're very happy to help you with that. Equally, to provide regular and updated training for staff so as they know how to respond and report any suspected signs of slavery. And we can help you there too. It's no good seeing the signs and not knowing what to do. We ask you please to do all that you can to use recruitment methods that eliminate the possibility of slavery. Listen to what Shane has said this afternoon. And particularly when you're looking at casual or agency staff. And an organisation called Stop the Traffic has a wonderful toolkit which really does help with identifying these things. And equally, can you please ensure that your suppliers and your contractors have employment procedures that will eliminate the risk of employing victims of slavery? And again, Stop the Traffic toolkit is a wonderful device a wonderful toolkit to use. We ask you, please, if you can share intelligence and information. So you find something in your business, share it with others. You find something in your home life, share it with others, just to help to detect the slavery, and let's ensure that it cannot take root. We ask you to display posters that staff, visitors will see absolutely regularly. Simple to put them up. Put them behind toilet doors, in canteens, in staff rooms, in notice boards. Anywhere that you can, put up a sign. And the Clure initiative have a wonderful selection of material that you can use. And all of these things, whether it's the Stop the Traffic toolkit, whether it's the Clure initiative stuff, it's all there and it's all free. So it's not going to cost you anything. And we ask you to regularly promote messages about slavery, how we can work to eliminate this in our communities in which we live, where we work, promote it with staff and anywhere that's appropriate within the network. And finally, we're asking you, please, can you make a modern slavery statement, which will be published on your website, any other promotional materials? This is voluntary. Any large organisation is required by law to make a modern slavery statement. But if your turnover is less than 36 million, it's voluntary. But if you make a statement, if you put it on your website, it says an awful lot about your business. So the pledge will have contact details of all the people that I've spoken about today. Please look at it. Please pick at least 3 things that you think you can do and send it back to us. Details on there of contact details for Marie and for me. It's an email address that's fairly easy to remember, surreyasp@gmail.com. It's on the pledge, so when that comes out to you, you're going to get that. So thank you for listening, and just let's hope that we can do something to reduce the slavery in the UK today.
Thanks very much, Chris. We're going to go back over now to Leo Ormondy. Apologies about the IT issues. You know, these things happen, but don't worry about it, Lee. Just he's ready now. OK, thanks ever so much.
I am ready now. Don't you love it when your laptop decides it needs to update without telling you? It's great. Shows it's live. Shows it's live. More exciting that way, isn't it? So let me just call up my presentation before anything else weird happens. Get on with it. Okay, there you go. So, okay, the crime behind the bargain. So what I'm going to talk about very briefly, like I said earlier, is to sort of pull out one strand of what Shane was talking about in relation to businesses. So current economic climate, people are struggling, businesses are struggling. We're coming up to Christmas, we're coming up to Black Friday. Now, people and businesses are going to be tempted to cut corners. They're going to be tempted to perhaps turn a blind eye to some things that may not appear too legitimate. What I want to do today is just basically explain why it's best not to do that. So first off, Like Shane said, modern slavery is throughout the entire supply chain. So from a food point of view, we're talking from farm to fork. All the processes through that system potentially could have modern slavery elements. So that's a general setting just to think about the entirety of your supply chains. You know, get assurances, just like Chris mentioned, like Shane was mentioning, get those assurances and just make sure that you have confidence. I'm going to talk about one particular product today. This could be any product at all. It could be footwear, it could be clothing, it could be food. What I'm going to select is illicit tobacco. So, first of all, what is illicit tobacco? There are three different types of illicit tobacco. Okay, so the first one is illicit or cheap whites. This is tobacco that's produced predominantly within Eastern Europe, and it's purely made for the purpose of smuggling. So there's no taxes paid on it, and these ones usually have really strange sort of brands like Jinling and some really odd ones. The next section is counterfeit. So this is where somebody is producing tobacco products, but they're trying to pass it off as the real thing. So that is the counterfeit. And then the third one is the non-duty paid. So this is where it is legitimate tobacco, but it's not intended for the UK market. So that's the sort of, you know, the people that go over the channel and fill up their vans with cigarettes, and which they should be paying duty on. So those are the three types of illicit tobacco. However, illicit tobacco is literally just a front for modern day slavery and exploitation. Just some of the related issues to illicit tobacco. And as you can see, they are very, very serious elements. So a lot of it, for example, is linked to drugs and firearms and burglaries. It involves trafficking people from Eastern Europe or in the Middle East, subjecting them to debt bondage. So the male victims may be put to work selling the tobacco. The female victims could be sexually exploited and subjected to violence and intimidation. And in some cases, even the children can be used to transport the goods themselves. Victims are often moved around to avoid detection, and they're paid really small amounts and controlled by the gangmasters. So, talking about illicit tobacco, the product itself is illegal. But if you're thinking, oh, well, you know, it's a Robin Hood situation, the tobacco companies can afford it, I'm urging you to look at the wider picture. This is just the tip of the really big iceberg that comes across organised crime, prostitution, modern slavery. And also, really importantly, it undermines public health. We all know how lethal tobacco products are. So it's really, really important that we don't facilitate people being able to buy cheap tobacco products, or for children to be able to get their hands on it either. So it's a real mixture. This, I just wanted to highlight to you, this is the incentive of why criminals do what they do. Now, these figures are quite old now. I do need to update them. But on the left-hand side, so cocaine. So half a kilogram of cocaine, 1 kilogram of amphetamine, and 8,700 benzyl piperazine tablets. Okay, so we're talking serious drugs. Street value of £229,400. The people that were investigated and prosecuted received 7 years, 4 months in prison for supply. Okay, so now we're going to look at Jinling. Okay, so this is an illicit tobacco. So now we're talking about 47,000 cigarettes and 51 kilograms of hand-rolling tobacco. Okay, so that is a significant amount. Street value, approximately £400,000. That's almost double the street value of the cocaine. And the people that were investigated and prosecuted, 8 months suspended prison sentence. That's because of the perception that it's not as serious a crime, but it makes it very, very tempting for crime gangs to utilise this type of mechanism in order to make the money that that they want. And then just to give a bit of context, I wanted to share a case study with you guys. So this is a case study. It's all too common, unfortunately, this particular story. But this is authorities in Spain that found an illegal cigarette factory that was holding 6 trapped Ukrainian workers. Now, when I say trapped, these people were literally buried underground. So this illegal underground facility was running out of fresh air due to the generator pump being turned off. They were living down there. It was 13 feet underground, and the workers, when they were taken there, were blindfolded, so they couldn't identify where they were going. This underground factory was producing at least 3,500 illicit cigarettes an hour and generating profits of £600,000 a week. So that just, hopefully that's a little window behind the scenes. So you've got those illicit tobaccos that they haven't had the duty paid. It's not helping the health of the community. But behind that, you have people buried underground being forced to make this. It's absolutely horrific. But what are we doing as trading standards? So in Buckinghamshire and Surrey, we are very proactive in the realm of illicit tobacco products. So we undertake test purchases. So that will be us going into shops, etc. It could be an underage test person where we use a younger person, or it could be an adult where we use a test purchase. We have tobacco detection dogs. So this is where we will go into premises and these beautiful dogs can detect the illicit tobacco. Very, very clever. So since April last year, we've seized 138,600 cigarettes, 12 kilograms of hand-rolling tobacco and 342 niche tobacco products. Now, a niche tobacco product is basically a product which contains tobacco, which isn't your traditional cigarette or cigar or whatever. This is Pippa. This is one of our tobacco detection dogs. If you get the opportunity to come to our open days, one of our many open days, you'll get to pet Pippa and she'd love it. And then that picture there is just a little picture of a false wall, just to show how much emphasis criminals are making on this particular type of work. And then finally, I just wanted to pick up what Chris was saying. Businesses earning an annual what's the word? Turnover. I was thinking overturn. The annual turnover of 36 million. Business has to promote and publish their anti-slavery statement. For those under 36 million, it's not a legal obligation. However, just like Chris said, I would urge all small and medium enterprises to sign up to the pledge. On the screen now as just some of the benefits, not least growing the organisation's customer base as more and more consumers are seeking ethical standards in the businesses they interact with. I mean, that is a range of reasons why I would definitely encourage people to sign up to the pledge. And finally, don't facilitate crime, don't turn a blind eye. If you want to share intelligence, if you want to share information, or if you want to make a stand, please do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee. We've only got 3 minutes left, and so far the questions that we've had put in the chat are about would we be circulating the information afterwards? And we absolutely will be. We just need a little bit of time to get the recording ready for publication. Now that you've heard all of our speakers and presenters, what we really want to do is just make sure that you go away and start some conversations about modern slavery and human trafficking. Ensure that in your personal and working life, your contribution, you're making a good contribution to responsible business practices, and you're out there spotting the signs and reporting any issues. We will circulate the slides as promised. That will include the do's and don'ts from Shane. It'll include the pledge that Chris spoke about, and also our contact details. So please do contact us if you'd like any help or support, or any future training or guidance with any of the things that we've spoken about today. So I'd like to close now by saying thank you. I'll just do one final check on the chat just to make sure if there's any further questions. No, we don't have any further questions. So unless anyone specifically has anything burning that they want to talk about now, please get in touch with us after the event. And thank you ever so much for your attendance today. And we hope you found it beneficial. Thanks.